I'm very excited to be with my friend Johnny. Johnny, it seems like all of my friend to most of the friend people that I know, like that are my friends, like you were kind of like a legend, but then like you have are now like a reintroducing yourself into the author world after a while. So do you want to, for this new crop of people, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and where you are and get us caught up?
Yeah, I normally want to swat down the idea of being a legend because you pulled that word out, but I'm like, I think I'm going to lean into it. Like, why not? Yeah. So for those of you who don't have any idea who I am, which is cool, I was we had the self-publishing podcast, and the fact that we had the self-publishing podcast and that it was self-publishingpodcast.com was in itself should give you some idea of how primary that was at the time. It was one of the first big voices on digital self-publishing. Joanna beat us and other people beat us, but we had this podcast. It was quite popular. It was me and Sean Platt and David Wright. And we all kind of worked together with each other in various permutations. And we were just like trying to figure it out together. This whole digital self-publishing thing in like 2012. And we wrote a book called Write, Publish, Repeat. We had a conference. We've done a bunch of stuff. But then after doing a lot of that, just for various reasons, I ended up kind of taking a step back, saying I just want to do fiction. I don't really need to do this like author facing stuff. And then I realized that I missed it. And it's lonely to just be a fiction author. And I am at least half extrovert. And so I really like being around other people. So I went back to my first conference after 5 years. And I just remember seeing like how rapid release had gotten super rapid and had been supercharged by AI. And I thought, interestingly, for CraftCon, that craft focused authors who were writing for the love of it, it was just much harder to even fathom how you would fit in. And that's when I kind of said, oh, I think I have something to say about this. And so just for about the past year or so, I've been starting to talk to authors again. And so that was my full circle.
Awesome. I love it. And you have a great blog. You also have you write great articles for the Author Stack, and you have a book that came out earlier this year. So you kind of talk a lot about the artist and author, and I feel like it would be great to hear a little bit about what the artist and author is, and also just like this is all about breaking blocks, and
Yeah.
where I feel the artist and author stuff fits in is like a lot of people are blocked by this like rapid release, by like right to market, by like do all of these other things. So can you talk us a little bit about like this transition from writing to market, writing a book a month, like doing all these things, to like writing these more artisanal books, or like following your path and how you can have success either way?
Yeah. So, just to kind of like define that a little bit more, because I kind of alluded to it in my quick tour of the world there, but I did after witnessing that and seeing how I was just putting myself in the shoes of like a new person who came in with unicorns in their eyes, and they wanted to create something that was passion driven and the book of their heart, or people that were in between various shades of that, and coming into this world where it was like, okay, so the common wisdom, which is almost stated as like gospel in digital self-publishing circles, is like, okay, well, we need to produce a book a month, you need to be in Kindle Unlimited, and of course there are outliers, but that is kind of one of the dominant voices. Go faster, produce, create systems, and just try to find the ways to work the arbitrage or whatever. And I really loved connecting to people, and I loved the idea of writing whatever weird books I wanted to write, because my books are kind of nutty. And as somebody who writes books that are out of the center, I imagine you can relate to
Hmm.
that,
For
right? Like,
sure.
it's hard. You can't write to market when you're writing unicorn western followed by hard sci-fi followed by whatever. So that was when I started talking about what I was calling like the artisan author. So that's the buzzword that I've kind of pulled out, and that's the book that I wrote, in a presentation that I gave at Author Nation, and it was very well received by people who were like, "Oh, thank you for telling me this. I didn't realize that there was still a way to succeed." So the basic, there's a lot of kind of symptoms of it, things that tend to go with artisan authoring, but that aren't like the heart of it. And I would say the heart is you don't, the heart of it, like the core thing about artisan authoring, is finding a way to um, create a reader focused business rather than an algorithm focused business. Now, obviously, if you catch algorithms in whatever way and you take off, that's great. But so much of what is being taught right now is like, here's how you trigger the algorithms, sometimes at the expense of the fact that there are real people on the back end of those algorithms. And also, maybe betraying what you personally want to create. So if you say, well, I'm going to create this specific book because this is exactly what my research has said, and my keywords need to be this, and that's algorithmic thinking. And there's nothing wrong with it, except for people like me and the other people that I've talked to who are like, those people can do their thing, but we don't want to do that thing. We want to know how to survive creating books that are a little more artisanal and they can be a little fancier, they can have a heavier emphasis on paperback or special editions, but they don't need to. It's just like it starts with that idea of how are you going to connect with people? How true are you going to be to your muse? And how do you find a way to survive? Yeah.
You made a very weird book that became a very weird television show. And like, so it's not just, you're not just saying this thing, like you've had this has happened to you by like following in this artisanal thing. So could you talk through that as well?
Yeah. So that's actually interesting. And there's a bunch of little pieces of it. Um, So the book that you're talking about is called Fat Vampire, and it was actually my first real book as a working author. I had one book before it, but that was like the book that everybody spends, writing 16 years writing because it means every word has to matter, and it's like yourself in pages. So the first real book as a working author was called Fat Vampire, and there were six of them, and it became quite popular. This was back, I think I published the first one in 2012. And in 20, maybe 18 or something like that, I was contacted by somebody who wanted to connect me with producers who wanted to make it into a TV show. And then, spoiler, that became a TV show called Reginald the Vampire, which was a sci fi original and is currently on Hulu in the US. I think it's on Prime, Amazon in Canada. I don't know where else. But that book was written under the kind of the old rules, the where we were just having fun and um, like let me try this weird book, let me just see if it resonates, and it did. Like even though the fact that it was very different from normal vampires, I call it my undead underdog story. I kind of use the tagline "Pretty vampires suck" because they're like the pretty vampires. He's not good enough for them. But that book was actually, I think there's a few lessons here. So, first of all, the Weird Book has gotten way more attention, and there was another high profile inquiry before the one that went than my more normal books. So, there's plenty of books that would have been like right down the middle of writing to market as far as Hollywood is concerned, and those have not gotten serious interest, at least that I've been part of. Whereas this one did. And the other thing that's I think worth mentioning is that when it was discovered by a producer with the BBC who just was a connection maker. It was never going to be on the BBC, and it caught his attention on Apple Books. So number one, it caught his attention, meaning it stuck out, and it caught him on Apple Books. It wasn't in KU. So I think that those are interesting. The other kind of pokes that I've gotten from that direction, all none of them have come from Amazon. I think Amazon is just anecdotally, it feels like people can't find stuff on there who are looking to have things made. That's just anecdotal. And the third thing that I would say about the weirdness of it is that the guys who picked it up were it was a team, Modern Story Publishing or Modern Story. I don't remember the whatever. And the two guys involved are Harley Payton, who was the showrunner from Twin Peaks. Talk about a weird show. He was looking for something unusual. And Jeremiah Chechik, who did Christmas Vacation and Benny and June and some other kind of weird, quirky things. And they gave me a reference as like, we want to make it like this. And it was the end of the effing world, that show that was on Netflix,
Mhm.
which was again a totally weird project. So from my perspective, I would rather stand out as something totally different, even if it might be easier in some cases to get more attention initially. But it's like if nothing, if there isn't some truly unique hook, it just feels like it's harder to hook onto, for want of a better way to explain it.
Well, and I think that in a world where everything's saturated, like there's a million, you can go online and find a billion books about any topic. Like if you want a sweet romance, you're gonna find whatever sweet romance you want. But then like in a flooded market, having this like twist, having this other way of getting in, both like kind of makes you I mean, I guess there could have been like a thousand other fat vampire style things to line it behind you and make a new trend. But like even if you're just like taking the trend of like vampires and
Hmm.
which is a I mean that's still huge. Like there's like vampire books sell like today just like they sold like 15 years ago. But like you if you are in this saturated market, then like having this twist, being able to say, oh, well, like I want to make a weird book that kind of has some vampire stuff, but like has my take on it, really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I have one more thing I can pivot off of that topic, and it is this. I'll try to keep it kind of short because this is a long thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and I think that it's like the core, one of the cores of the artist and author thing as well. And it's that because I can imagine people think listening to this and saying, oh, okay, well, I should write a weird book, and then nothing else occurs to them. And if you follow the same rules as everybody else is saying to follow, as far as publicity and marketing and what you do with your books and platforms, and you write weird books, it's not going to work. Like you you have to operate differently. You can't say I'm going to write a weird book, it's going to stand out, I'm going to put it in KU. It's not how that works, right? KU is not looking for books that stand out. So there are different sort of thousand true fans based ways. And I know that this isn't like a business thing necessarily. I'm going to make my point here. A thousand true fans sort of approach to reaching readers. You're not trying to connect with the world. You're trying to connect with individuals and accumulate true fans over time. But as part of that, this is the me up on the soapbox. Is it's occurred to me more and more that what we consider to be normal is totally bogus. Like there's no such thing as a majority normal. And in the 50s, it became Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver. But the media has never fully represented reality to the point where people who are weird or off the beaten path think that they're a total anomaly, when in fact, in aggregate, all the weird abnormal people vastly outnumber the normal people. And the reason that all of this is relevant is because if you're writing something that's off center, yeah, you may not hit that fat part of the bell curve for the KU algorithm, but believe me, there are people out there who are looking for it and who haven't been able to get it in the past. So, like, there's this market, you just have to find them, is all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I think that's why Kickstarter exists and like these kind of like other direct sales platforms as well. Okay, let's pull back for a second because like we've gotten really strategic and when let's say someone is blocked, they're like, I love it. Like this is great. This is amazing. But like how you mentioned popcorn before and some other, but like
Hmm.
how someone wants to write this idea and like they are, but like they don't quite know how all of the things come together. Like when you find somebody that's blocked and they want to do this, like how do you work through these blocks with them?
I haven't worked with people directly, but I think that blocks can come from a billion different places. And so it's like you can't just address the symptom. So like I'm a type 1 diabetic. There are type 2 diabetics in the world, and we call both diabetes because they have the same symptoms, but you can't treat them the same because they're totally different causes. They just happen to have the same afflictions, the same symptoms. And I think it's similar with blocks. The result of a block is you can't move forward, but it could be anything with like life circumstances that are messing with your head and so you can't get into it, to a problem with the story, to the potentially it's the wrong project, to a distracting environment, or sometimes I think just to the fact that it may not be the right time, which is something that I've come around on a lot. Is sometimes I think that a block is kind of like nature's forest fire for writers. You know that aphorism about how like forest fires are necessary to kind of clear the slate and force nature to reset. And I think that blocks sometimes for us when we push too hard, it's this sense of like slow down, right? Like you have something else you need to attend to and slash or you've been pushing too hard on this particular thing. So I've been starting to obey those things. Like today is not the day that I push. Today is not
Mm.
the day that I sit down and say I'm going to break this block. I am going to write this thing. And it's a fine line because when you're new, that's exactly what procrastination looks like. Is oh, I'm blocked. I'm not going to write today. So I would say number one is to kind of identify the cause. And sometimes it's the circumstances just are not right, or you're being told not to write the right book or something like that. But if the project itself is like you're pretty, you're into it, you feel that it's the right project, you've written a bunch of words in it, and it just feels like this is like something that you're particularly stuck on right now, I think that there are a few things you can do, and I kind of just think of like shake the etch a sketch. So one is I'll never forget this. This was something that I went my very first writers conference. It was in like 1998 or something. I mean, it was quite a while ago. And I remember I asked that question. I said, "What happens when like my characters just get into a room and look at each other? You're like, what do we do now?" You know? And the person that was speaking that answered the question said, drop a tree on someone's head. And like that's just kind of a big picture way of saying do something extremely disruptive. And you can then sort it out later. You can be like, okay, well, now that I'm past it, like if I'd literally dropped a tree, because I mean, with Stephen King, like he did it with a bomb or whatever, like I don't mean a literal tree, but if you did something and you're like, okay, that wasn't the right thing, you can always change it. The disruption is what matters, not the pattern break is what matters.
Right.
So that's one option is to just do something disruptive.
Well,
And
and
I
there's some
carried that with
pattern
me.
breaks. Yeah, there's some pattern breaks that just happen in like if you are writing a mystery or a
Hmm.
thriller, like you can kill somebody at any time. If like you are writing a romance, you can make two people kiss. And like that
Hmm.
will always like either of those things, like you could do that. There's no upper limit to how many times you can do that in a book if you get stuck, if you write that kind of book. Like if you have a fantasy book, you can have a Deus Ex Machina happen just about at any time. Like there can
Hmm.
be a magic thing. Like if it's a science fiction, like some technology could malfunction at any time in any book ever. So like it's not just that you can make anything happen, which you could, but
Hmm.
like if you can fall back on like the genre itself also has these things that can like create these fall on head moments as well, right?
Right. If you're writing a zombie book, then have the zombies break in. If you're writing a biological thriller, then the virus escapes. If you're, writing a thriller, then the killer catches up with somebody that you weren't expecting to. You can do all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I do. There's some, and to go to your point about blocks, I used to say there's no such thing as a block. Now I'm much more on the other side where like there's the fact that there are not blocks constantly is the amazing part. Like because the moment how you when you get in flow, that like moment of flow where like it's all working, like there's so little of that in life where
Hmm.
it's like the characters are coming, the things happening. Like most of the universe is like blocking you from getting in flow. And not to get all like woo woo about it, but like I am pretty woo woo. And
Me too.
yeah, so when you are like, I feel like every time I've ever been, if I actually think back on it, it's like, oh, like something was wrong in the story or my life or the circumstances, or like I did something wrong or I said something else or I went off track. So, like, the more I can, and even when I was a newer author, like often it was fear that was holding me back, and I could just say, just write the stupid scene, just write the scene, just like I don't know, like write the scene or write another scene or write a different scene. But when I really go back to look at those books now, it's like they were not good. Like I
Hmm.
don't know, like if I just read them out and like, oh well, I sh probably shouldn't have done that thing that blocked me. But I at the beginning you need to just like write that thing knowing that the first book's probably not going to be good just to like get the reps in. But like my gut actually was more right in my career than I gave it credit for. Again, because those initial things, they were not good. I was right. I shouldn't have done that. But like I was also wrong that I should let it stop me. I just had to push forward so that my taste could match my output.
Yeah, and I think I think the extreme of that can also be kind of dangerous because when you're new, when I was new anyway, it was like I didn't know what I was doing, quote, wrong. And I'm saying
Mm,
quote wrong because it wasn't wrong. It just was like I could have hyperanalyzed it in the moment and said, no, don't do that. And that critical part, I think it's more not developed because that implies like something that's positive, but more aware. It wakes up more. And that's why I think sophomore slumps happen because you're like, oh, well, now I know a little bit more about what I shouldn't do. So you're seeing it in advance. Oh, here comes a cliche. I'd better not do that. Whereas in the past, I probably would have written through the cliche and in the articulation of it, it wouldn't have been a cliche and it was never a problem. But for some reason, I wasn't stopping myself in the way that I did when I was more developed. And actually, so since we're talking about blocks, I didn't think of this story, but this is more like kind of a career block. And I think this might be illustrative in terms of fiction. So Sean, I write most of my books with Sean Platt, and Sean and I had a very good process that worked really well. And it was just this carefree, like, burn the fields behind us sort of thing because we just weren't playing. We were kids playing with matches running through the fiction for us. And when after we'd done that for a few years and I was like starting to pay more attention in the way that I'm describing to like, well, I want to do more complex things. I don't want to do simple things and so we wrote it came to a head with this book called Pattern Black. And I started like totally left braining it. And I was like, oh, well, what would happen in a movie in this case? And oh, I don't want to do that. And let me keep track. Let me draw out all the timelines. Whereas I would just do all that stuff in my head in the past. And that like faux maturity switch flipped and got in my way. And I'm actually in the process right now of unlearning all of that and like trying to revert myself to a more naive place where I can do no harm, which is weird.
I mean, I had three books last year that I stopped about 10,000 words in. And in my entire career, I've maybe had three in 50 books, 60 books, 76 books or something that I've written, something like that. But like when I finally got past it, I went like back to writing Portal Fantasy in the way that I like to write Portal Fan like the books that I like and the books that I was trying to write were books that I intellectually thought would do well or should do well, but I didn't want to write those books. I just didn't want to like those books didn't do anything to me or for me, so my body was just bored or it couldn't get past that block. And but like then I went back and I made a very weird book. I was always trying to be like, well, this is not what would happen in this world right now. And so I was like, well, in order to make this book sell better, I needed to do this thing. And like I couldn't do like I am not the kind of person who can like force that thing. I can do it
Mhm.
better in nonfiction because there is a right way to do a lot of like processes. Like if you want to run Facebook ads, there is a one, two, three. Like you can't go to Shutterfly and run a Facebook ad. You have to go to the business.facebook.com dashboard. Like it's the only way to run Facebook ads is to like do that. Like so there's like an order of things and there's creativity in it, but it's a lot easier to be like, well, this is the right way to do the thing. But in fiction, it's just like it's impossible for me to have that same reaction. So I end up being blocked, and 99% of my blocks are like, you just don't want to write this thing. Like, this is not how you would write it. You're trying to write for the algorithm. And there are some amazing writers who can do that. And I am very jealous of people that like have mass market tastes. I am not one of them. Like, I need when like I wrote a book series called Dragon Strike, Wicked Witch Academy, and the final battle, they were about to fight the boss, and like all of the found family comes up to like fight the boss, and like they in front of this dragon, and the dragon's like, yeah, I don't want to do this. Like I give up. Like you take this stupid kingdom, and I'm like. Well, that's a very people are going to be real angry when they get to that part or love it because but like I have been dreading writing this book for months because I was writing to this moment of like dragon versus found family as they all like ragtag group get in front of them and like I was like I literally sat in front of this thing for 3 days and like why can't I write this book? And I was like oh because like I don't want them to fight. I don't want them to kiss. I just want them to like,
Uh-huh.
I want to do that. I want to demonstrate that running a kingdom is hard, no matter how you do it. And if the dragon's like, I'm done. Like, if you're gonna try and fight me, go. Like, take this thing, see how you like it. And I was like, oh, yes, that is the right way through. So I think blocks are often like in that in that way, it's we either have to get past them by just strong arming our way through, which I actually think AI is a very good thing to like to help you with that thing to like make something more mass market, or you have to say, well, like where did I go wrong?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I think that it's important to remember, or it's maybe helpful to remember, that writing is still an art. And we pay lip service to that idea, but then we very quickly forget it when we're in the Reddit threads and whatever. And we're looking at, okay, well, what's the market consuming and what's hot right now? But it's art, and it's hard to pin down art sometime. There's no rules for it. So I thought of this when you were describing your dragon solution, is nobody can tell you whether that's right or wrong. That's the way the art came out. And that's true of just about everything. And even like their, hero's journey or expected scenes or tropes. Okay, I get it. Those are things in the marketplace, but I think we should consider those as guidelines. And if you want to sell, then there is kind of a continuum of, depending on who you're selling to, all that stuff, that you want to hit those things. But those expectations that my scene needs this, it needs to end this way, or it needs not to have this, is you're trying to impose rules on a ruleless medium, something that lives and breathes with the fact that it's kind of never been done before, or this version of it. You're always hacking a new trail if you're being true to art, even if you're following some of the same footsteps. Art is something that I think if you want to figure out how to hack it, you can't look it directly in the eye, because it's like trying chasing a like a mirage or something. You kind of have to sneak around it. And so some of the ways that I think that you can kind of sneak around it are to try a different form. So if you're super stuck on your novel, then you can write short stories, you could write a poem. I have very recently been interested in songwriting. It's just a form that, like, I went to a songwriting camp and stuff. And what I've found is it's very interesting because songs are so small. I can address themes that, like, I have these big ideas for books. Oh, I should write a book about whatever. And that's hard for me to build to a theme like that. I start with a premise and a theme will evolve. Whereas with a song, I can do that. I can just say, oh, well, this is kind of about this. Or another thing you can do is like free writing, the Julia Cameron style morning pages. Or one of the uses that I have tried with AI with mixed success, for me, it just depends on the person, is kind of brainstorming. What could happen here? A lot of times I'll do that with another person. It's usually Sean, my writing partner, but getting another brain or entity, or if it's AI, I don't know how you define that, just hitting back and forth things that it's like, even if you never use anything directly, it's interesting to hear a response. Well, I'm thinking about doing this. What are some variants? And then whoever you're talking to, or whatever you're talking to, says, well, what, you could do this. And you say, oh, well, I don't like that. But you've opened up a new possibility that I wasn't even considering just because I asked the question. So I think that there are those ways that you can kind of like find an indirect path, because the direct path is like I said, it's like chasing a mirage.
Yeah, I mean, I love this idea of like ask the question because I think we are built as humans to, or we are taught as humans to not ask the question and just do, like, not bug people and just like go off on your own. And like, I don't know, you should know how to do the thing. Like you should just like you were born with the way to do this thing. But like there is so much value in just like saying, I don't know, like asking Google, asking Plot Drive, asking a human, just like even stopping someone on the street, like asking someone at your local Starbucks or like whatever, what, like I have this thing, can I talk you through something? And like you will learn more in 3 to 5 minutes of conversation than you probably learned researching and reading 10 books because like
Hmm.
where I think a lot of blocks come from is I don't know where I don't know what the answer is. Like, I don't know what people's reaction is going to be. And so, like, you can literally have somebody come back with a reaction and be like, oh, like, I send a lot of emails to my publisher, like, I have a stupid idea, or like, I have just a dumb but maybe brilliant idea. Like, and I let them be like, this is what I'm thinking. Is this even close? And usually my publisher's like, actually, that's not as dumb as you think it is. Or like, I actually also think it's a good idea. And especially like the more artisanal that I get in my career, the more I'm like, this is like I have an email list of like close to 50,000 people. It's like I either need to do something knowing that I'm going to irritate people, do something to appease people, or do something knowing that they're going to find something interesting and like it's going to unlocks something in them. But like it's hard for me often to like I wrote an article over the weekend that was like 9,000 words. And I it was about like how to turn a nonfiction piece of research into an article. And like I
Mhm.
wrote it for my wife after talking with my wife about my process and being like, she's like, I really want to do this workshop, bring these people in, and I like, but like we don't have the budget for it. I was like, well, like I literally this is like the thing that I do. And she's like, yeah, but they have a process. I'm like, well, I could have a process in like an hour. And then we talked through it on a ride. And like I spent the next day like kind of like making this whole thing. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, look. Now I have a process. Now I have a worksheet. Now I have all of these things, but it only came from talking it through and then having her read the process. And that I never would have written that article without that interaction.
Yeah. And I think that, so as you were describing that, I was thinking like it is useful to know who you are too. So that's why I think that author ecosystems thing that you and Monica developed was really helpful, is to understand that you would approach that sort of thing and breaking blocks differently than I would. And
Mhm.
I think that there's a lot of prescription out there. There's a lot of like, this is the way that it is done. And one of the things that I keep saying to people is like the least helpful thing is there is no way that things are done. There are
Right.
ways that will work for individual people. And they're like, I usually say that everything works for somebody and nothing works for everybody. And that's not the way that things are taught. Another thing that I think can really lead to blocks, and so you have to like it's like referred pain in a limb, is you have to find the cause, and it's not always where the pain is. So sometimes pressure to produce, which is what can happen. I mean, it can happen in many places, but like the rapid release sort of thing, when you're like, I need to produce right now, the clock is ticking. And if you've ever tried to go to sleep and say, I have exactly 3 hours, I need to fall asleep right now, we know how that messes with people's heads. Um, and fear of criticism. So when you were saying that you have the list and that some people are going to hate it, I think, I mean, let's not skirt past that. Like that's something that'll, it's scary to think that people will not like what you do, especially if you do something off center, but it is where art is born, is it comes inherent with a risk of criticism. I'm sorry, a certainty of criticism. Seth Godin said, you will be criticized or you will be ignored. It's very true. If you want to make a mark, you need to understand that. And the solution, easier said than done, is to not give a crap. And it's like, that's okay. Who, we're tribal creatures. You say, don't care if people criticize you, don't care if people don't like you. I've gotten better and better at it. There are people that are for me, and there are people that aren't for me, and I don't pay much attention to the people who aren't for me because that's not my job. That's somebody else's job. So
I,
getting those mental things is a really big deal too.
yeah, I like to say that every time I find someone who hates me, I've also found someone who loves me and vice versa. I just don't know where the other equilibrium is because
Yeah.
like to me that's like living like a creative life is and every project people are going to dislike and say it's your worst book, and other people are going to say it's your best book. And like, take any, you can go and look at any book, and it's the same exact words. And like, it's a 5 star, it's a 1 star. Some books have more 1 stars than 5 stars. Some books have more 5 stars than 1 stars. But like, they're reading the exact same text. And some people are coming to it and being like, this is my favorite book ever. Some are saying this is the worst book I've ever read, did not finish. And like, you can't control that. Like, you can control the work. And that's really all you can put out. Like the minute that it goes out into the world, like it stops being yours and starts being every person who reads it. And you are creating an experience, but like they are having the experience, and some of them and like you can't control how anyone reacts to that thing or the percentage of them that like or dislike it really at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you said that because you kind of beat me to the punch on it. Is I like to say that art is collaborative, and what that means is that it is partially yours. So there's these arguments about like, well, what whose interpretation is right of something? Is it the creator or is it the audience? Or sometimes there are creators that people have really come to hate, and it's like, well, but the art still means something to me, and it's like That's because it stops being 100% the creator, and they're always the fan or the reader or whoever it is always bringing themselves to it. So, as a very specific example, I know I had a project. It was one of my projects with Sean, and somebody that we talked to had a very strongly negative reaction to something in it. I don't mean to belittle it, but it was something that it was no big deal. It was like, what, why are you reacting so strongly to this? And they really had a problem. And the bottom line, without risking divulging anybody's, breaking any privacy or anything, was that there was a situation in their life that was mirrored in the book. And we had people in the book do something that would have been offensive to them because it was capitulation. It was letting the other party win. Now, in the book, that was neutral. There was no right, wrong, or indifferent. But for this person who was attaching their feelings, their emotion, their situation, it was like a betrayal. It was crazy. But you can't control that. You never know when your book is going to hit somebody in a certain way and what baggage they're bringing to it, good, positive, or whatever. So I think you need to, that's part of trying not to care too much is understanding that no matter how much you care, you're only providing half of what's going into that, and the rest you can't control. So why bother? Why worry about it?
Well, yes, as we wind to a close here, it's really interesting because like if you want people to strongly love your work, like that is your reaction, have a strong reaction to your work, you can't also not have them have people have a negative reaction to things you do. Like this world of like living an artist and author life, it feels like it's like you can either make something that is very milquetoast and hasn't people will still have opinions on it, but like you will not necessarily have opinions on it, or they will be like neutral opinions. Like, or you can take this other direction, which is like making the book of your heart the thing that you really want to do, taking and like making this world where like people resonate very deeply with it. But we don't talk about this thing, this part of it, which is they can resonate with it negatively, just like they can resonate with it positively.
Yes. And the one thing I would like to add to this, because I know we're wrapping up, but I think this is right on point, is so I often quote Derek Sivers, who he was talking about music, but it applies to books as well. And the idea was, I'm going to kind of paraphrase it, was that you need to proudly alienate people who don't like what you want. And what that means is don't just like be like, well, they're going to leave my list. It's okay. They're not going to read me. And you're proud about it. You're proud about it. And the example that he's given is like if you're like some thrash metal band and you're like pop music sucks, you're going to offend all of the pop music people, but you're proud to let them go. But then the important flip side of that, the other thing that people forget is that the people who are also think that pop music sucks see that you are standing firm on that and they love you more. So proudly alienating people who are wrong for you increases your bond with the people who are right for you because they see that you're kind of like acting as a vanguard. You're standing for what they stand for.
All right, man. Thanks so much for coming on. It's great talking with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Right on.